Okay, this is a review for the Like a Dragon, Yakuza TV show, which is an adaptation of the Yakuza, Like a Dragon video games. This was supposed to be a review of episodes 1 through 3, but after watching episode 2, I don't know, something happened. Episodes 2 and 3 disappeared. There's an error message. It seems everyone's sort of encountered this. So you're getting the true video game experience with this adaptation. The TV shows now crash the same way that video games do. But I think most of what I have to say can be said based on episodes 1 and 2 alone. So we'll just go ahead. Now, so far this show falls under the category of I like this, but there's a big sort of but here, a big but. You know, with any adaptation, there's always the question of, how faithfully do you adapt the source material, or if you do change things around, is there a point where the story is bent to the point of being broken? On the one hand, maybe there's not a lot of value in doing a sort of one-for-one adaptation of the first Yakuza game. I've played all the games. My memory's a little fuzzy on some details, so if I get some details wrong, feel free to clarify down below. But it's maybe not the most exciting thing to do a sort of one-for-one adaptation, especially seeing as the games are so story heavy in the first place. There's also news of a God of War TV show that's going to come out, to which I say, why? What's the point? A lot of these games, they're so dead set on being movies in the first place. It just seems like, what's the point of then retrofitting it into a TV show? So I don't mind necessarily if somebody wants to try and tell a new story or to sort of change some things, but there are certain changes in this Yakuza TV show that are just strange to me, and I'm not sure why they were made or what they add, or, I think that's part of the question is when you are adapting something, are you adding to what's already there? Are you just changing something for the sake of changing it, or are you adding something that makes the story stand apart in a meaningful way? Again, in general, I do like the show so far. It's very tightly paced. It's got lots of nice criminal intrigue, but the question does arise, is this sort of just a different story that kind of is using the existing IP as just sort of advertising? So for instance, Kiryu's character and story has been changed in really sort of fundamental ways. When we first meet Kiryu and Nishiki and Yumi and the other woman whose name I don't know, we meet them as orphans, which I don't believe we get a lot of in the games. We don't get too much backstory of their time at the orphanage, I don't think, but we first meet them living at the Sunflower Orphanage, and they're committing a heist. And while I like this idea, just if you just don't think about the games, if you don't think about how it relates to the games, or if you don't think of it as an adaptation, I like the scene and the characters taken at face value, but I never really thought of Kiryu as committing heists. He doesn't seem like a guy who's he doesn't do much planning, doesn't do much scheming. Kiryu's early days, he was just kind of a bruiser. His character he's kind of a warrior poet. He's very stoic on the outside, but a lot of the emotion is sort of simmering underneath. He's not much of an intellectual necessarily. He doesn't do a lot of planning. So to position him as sort of a guy who does heists, you're already sort of doing weird things to the character. And then his entire relationship to the elder Kazama has been changed, as well as how Kiryu and Nishiki first enter into the Yakuza. In the games, I believe Kazama is already he's still in the Yakuza. He's an elder patriarch of the clan, and both Kiryu and Nishiki sort of look up to him, and they want to join the Yakuza. Whereas in this it seems like the elder Kazuma is a former Yakuza, and in committing this heist, both Kiryu and Nishiki and Yumi, they run afoul of this other Yakuza boss, and them joining the criminal underworld, they do so because they've sort of been backed into a corner. It's not something that, that they always wanted to be and then later become disillusioned with, in the case of Kiryu, but I don't know, I get the sense that this change was made to just sort of make the Yakuza less sympathetic or something. I think a lot of what makes the games interesting and unique is you are in a world of bad guys, but in this world of bad guys, you have people who sort of are trying to do the most good that they can, or are trying to be as noble and just as is possible within a seedy criminal enterprise. Kiryu should want to be in the Yakuza because it's an organization that's centered around sort of a brotherhood and a kind of a samurai-esque code of honor. Even though it is a criminal organization, there's lots of rules and rituals and a code of conduct. And Kiryu, as a wayward orphan, as a wayward young man, that's a sense of structure and belonging that he's sort of looking for as a young guy. Meanwhile, in this adaptation, Kiryu doesn't seem to have a very good relationship with the elder Kazuma, which again is fine for an adaptation, but you are also sort of taking something away. You're taking away that role model for Kiryu. You're taking away that sort of, the elder Kazuma sort of informs a lot of Kiryu's personality, his desire to do good. He's sort of one of the few righteous players in the game, not just in the video game, but in the game of organized crime. And I think the change that I like the least so far in this adaptation is Kiryu wanting to be the Dragon of Dojima. First of all, it adds this new idea of that there already was a Dragon of Dojima, which is silly to me. So there already was a previous Dragon of Dojima, which I assume is the elder Kazuma, and so Kiryu wants to be the new Dragon of Dojima. And the reason why this doesn't work is, again, Kiryu was never a sort of vain or narcissistic character. In his youth, he did, again, he more wanted to belong to something. He wanted, his ambition was to be a part of the Yakuza, to belong to something. He wasn't necessarily a vain or narcissistic guy, whereas this, he's like, I want everybody to call me the Dragon. The Dragon of Dojima was a title that other people gave to Kiryu. That's the significance. It's like the big difference, the difference between having the Dragon of Dojima being a title that Kiryu wants versus something that is placed upon him, is that the latter is sort of emblematic of his reputation. This is a guy who's garnered a reputation as a tough guy, as a guy who gets things done. The thing about Kiryu that makes him such a compelling protagonist is he's a guy who has power, but that doesn't really go looking for it. I believe in the first game, he's about to be made a captain of his own family. He's a guy who just sort of cultivates respect without necessarily looking for it. And he does so by, being a good guy. People respect him because he's tough, because he gets things done, but also just because he is a good guy. And I get what they're trying to do by showing him as being a sort of a naive, young, ambitious guy, and then prison changes him and I assume turns him into the more stoic version of the character that most people are familiar with. That's another thing, is these first 2 episodes, they were very flashback heavy. There wasn't a lot that took place in sort of the present day, or in the sort of, well, I guess it's 2005. That's not really the present day, but there wasn't a lot that really took place post Kiryu's release from prison, which, again, it's fine. It seems like they're trying to sort of combine Yakuza 0 and the first Yakuza game, and they're trying to sort of streamline it. But I don't know. It almost seems like a completely different character. It seems like they took a lot of elements from Nishiki's character arc, who was the more sort of openly ambitious sort of guy. It seems like they took a lot of his character elements and sort of added it to Kiryu, and I don't know if that's, again, it's fine in the context of the TV show, but it goes back to the question of, why are you making this change? Why even adapt the story in the first place? I don't know. Another change, which I'm not really sure about, is it seems like Haruka is no longer Yumi's daughter, but is Yumi's sister's daughter. I don't remember Yumi having a sister in the games. Again, feel free to correct or clarify whatever I might have got wrong. But making Haruka not Yumi's daughter is a weird decision to me, because then what is the connection between Kiryu and Haruka? Their initial connection is that Yumi is sort of Kiryu's unrequited love. They sort of had a thing back in the day. It didn't really work out. Kiryu went to prison. Later, Yumi dies. And so Haruka is not just some random kid. She's a kind of reminder of what Kiryu lost. She represents sort of a debt that Kiryu is repaying to someone who meant a lot to him. Haruka is kind of the daughter that he and Yumi might have had he not gone down a different road in life. So I don't know. Maybe they do end up revealing that Haruka is Yumi's daughter, but I feel like it's kind of an essential part of Kiryu's character arc. It's an essential connection that I'm not really sure why you would remove it. I don't know. I did like Kiryu's initial meeting with Majima. I think that was a nice sort of setup to their rivalry. Again, though, I feel like it's too flashback heavy. Like these first two episodes, there was just a lot of it took place in 1995, and again, it feels like a sort of mashup between Yakuza 0 and the first Yakuza game, but with a lot of the important details left out. Let's see, what else? I think if you're expecting more of the humorous side of the Yakuza games, I think you're going to be disappointed. There's not a lot of the zany humor or the side stories. I don't think you're ever going to be able to adapt the games perfectly, which again sort of begs the question, why do it at all? Because the games sort of exist in like all these, in kind of two separate realities. You have the very sort of serious crime drama, and then you have this sort of other sub-reality that's a little bit more wacky, where this guy who's going through some very serious stuff will all of a sudden go through a very wacky and zany side quest. And these are things that they mesh really well in video games. It creates a very unique stew. It's very unique to the Yakuza franchise, but I imagine would be harder to adapt in television. So I guess they sort of have to pick one or the other. And I don't have a problem with it necessarily. But if you are sort of looking for the more lighthearted, funny side of the series, you're not going to get much of that from the show, I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. All adaptations are just kind of cash grabs to me, whether it's Yakuza or God of War. Again, I do like the show for what it is, but there's really no reason for it to exist. You think of the character of Kazuma Kiryu, he's intrinsically, you can't take him outside of the context of a video game. He's his voice actor. The voice actor is very important to Kiryu's character. He's the video gaminess, that's very important to his character. He's a video game character, and it's very hard to just sort of take these out of their kind of native element and say, here's the TV show version. It's always going to be kind of lesser than what it's supposed to be. But that said, I like a good crime drama. I like a good Yakuza crime movie. I like Takeshi Kitano films. I think this sits well within the realm of a kind of Takeshi Kitano Yakuza potboiler. And so I'm interested in the show. I'm interested to see where it goes next. I don't know why episode 3 is not available. It says there's 3 episodes. It just disappeared. It crashed the same way that a game would. I don't know. Anyway, that I think that's all I have to say about that. Yakuza Like a Dragon, aka Like a Dragon Yakuza, Amazon Prime, etc., etc. Check it out, I guess. I wonder if maybe someone who's not familiar with the story of the games would get a bigger kick out of the show because they're not bringing any of that sort of that baggage, those sort of preconceptions about what the characters or the story should be. So I would say check it out even if you're not a fan of the games. It's something out of the ordinary. It's something out of the realm of American television. I don't know. That's all I got to say about that. Goodbye.